I just gotta say that today's one of the happier days of my life, I think. Today is one of the more exciting days in our family's life because my daughter has just started to poop into the potty, to poop onto the potty. It's been fantastic. It's been about a year. It's been about a year. We've been waiting for this moment, but earlier this week, she's been taking some giant dumps into the potty, and we cannot be more excited about the future of our daughter and the trajectory of this family. So I'm just saying to all of those parents out there who are struggling now with a child who is maybe a little bit potty hesitant with the poop, that you will get there and you will make it. Coming from someone who didn't think, that we would be able to get there, we did. We did. So thank you guys for joining. I see people are starting to fill the room. So hello out there to everybody who's filling the room. I'm doing handheld today. I like doing a handheld today. I'm going to do it handheld live, so I'm not going to be able to type as much. But yeah, look at that. What is that? A little swastika right there. But it's not. It's a whirling log. Came out of a vintage cigar box from the 1920s. So if any of you guys are thinking certain things, go ahead and think them. I don't care. But I did want to talk about the RNC and what I thought. I mean, I watched Nick live stream during most of it. And I think I was feeling pretty much the same as he did all throughout it. I thought that it was a snooze fest. I thought that its target demographic was easily the white female between 50 and 70 years old. I thought that it was a cringe fest. I don't remember any worthy or memorable speeches from that night. Hey, Game Boy. Wow, thanks. Look at that. Wow, $1.99. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you're still around. Thank you. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. But like I was saying, there was nothing memorable. Not even Trump's speech was memorable. He rambled on for about, what was it, an hour and a half. And the issue that I take most out of everything, forget the blasphemous prayer or whatever you want to call that happened from one of Trump's lawyers. Forget the Amber Rose. I'm not even all that mad at the Amber Rose. Well, it's not that I'm all that mad. It's that I'm not surprised, because if Amber Rose had a turning toward Christianity, then I would cut her a little bit of slack. But she's still a degenerate, right? She still has that outward appearance of a bad person. Yes, she probably still supports and believes in abortion. She's probably somewhat of a feminist. The only thing that she talked about in her speech was that, the media lied to me about how racist Trump was. And then I found out that he wasn't that racist. And now I'm all on MAGA. And so she's not in it for policy points. She's not a conservative. I think she has just found a new grift. We're going to see. There are a lot of people. Oh, yeah. Well, I know that Amber Rose had mentioned in past tweets or an interview that she's a Satanist. I didn't know that she was a porn star. I thought she was just kind of like the creator of the slut walk and all that stuff. I didn't know that she was an active into pornography, or if she's an OnlyFans person or anything like that. But what a horrible RNC. Probably the most horrible RNC ever. No, I can't even do a Trump. I think the best thing I saw from Trump all week was the Shane Gillis appearance on Kill Tony this week, where he did the best Trump impression I have ever seen. And if you guys have a chance, please go watch it and go see it. But yeah, I think a lot of horrible people were elevated in being given the ability to speak in front of the Republican National Convention, which just goes to show you that the RNC, Republicanism, conservatism, even if you want to go that far, is over. It's so over. It's very over. And I don't mourn its death. I actually celebrate its death. I think that we need to move forward as people on the right and really disassociate ourselves with that movement. You had Jews give speeches who still identify as Democrat voting Jews, but just because one happens to be suing Harvard because of anti-Semitic speech or something like that, we're not interested. There were four things, and maybe this list will expand, but there were four things that I really didn't hear anybody talk about: abortion, opposition to abortion, the elimination of abortion, the ending of immigration, like moratorium on immigration as a whole, not legal immigration. No, we're ending immigration for a while until we figure this stuff out. If we can go back to old Trump, what else? What else? Christianity. There was some weird pastors. I know that there was an Orthodox priest. I know that there was a Catholic priest who did give some speeches or lead through prayer, but I think that Indian woman totally uh, trumped all of that by giving that prayer to end one of the nights. I thought that was awful. Nobody talked about the Jewish and Zionist influence in the Republican Party and in politics as a whole. So those are four things that if they would have brought that up, I think they would have connected with Gen Z, who I think they need Gen Z's vote. They don't need the boomer. They don't need the millennial. They need the Gen Z to come out and vote in mass, even though um, I think Trump is going to win. And up until, I mean, listen, when the assassination attempt happened, I was surprised, really. I was glad to see that he made it and it wasn't a successful attempt. But the days after the assassination attempt, you saw kind of like a muted Trump, which was interesting. You really didn't see that in the past, which I think was sort of a strategy. He wasn't bombastic, and he wasn't using social media as much as he probably would have normally back then. Um, but then during his speech, he talked about what he felt during the attempt, and I thought he was going to give this recount of really how he felt, what was going through his head, and I thought it was going to get a little bit more, not esoteric, not spiritual, but I thought he was going to go into more in depth about it. But he just did the whole Trump thing. It was a beautiful day, probably one of the best days I've ever seen. Beautiful town, Butler, Pennsylvania. It's beautiful. That kind of whole thing. And then, he says that he wasn't supposed to be there at the RNC giving the speech because he was supposed to be dead, and he was saved by ultimately the grace of God, which is, if you would have taken that road and spoken about his spirituality and how much closer he's been brought to God, and maybe that it will lead him upon a spiritual journey even further into Christianity, that would have been something I would have been interested in. But he didn't do that. I mean, he spoke about the assassination attempt really, really poorly, in my opinion, and it lasted way too long. And then what really, really bothered me was his jab at Bukele. And a lot of people that I know were saying, no, 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 he was conflating Venezuela and El Salvador. I don't think he was talking about El Salvador, but he did talk about El Salvador. He said the first part where this whole spat starts. The first part he talks about, you have some of these Latin American countries that are claiming that they're doing good, but they're not doing good because they're sending us their worst. He didn't name a country, but then he said countries like El Salvador talking about a 70% drop in crime, and their president, I like him, but he's not totally being honest with you. He's saying that 70% crime is down and that they're jailing a lot of people, and what they're doing, we looked into it. They're not jailing, they're just sending. But if you look at the data shows you that illegal immigration from El Salvador since Bukele took office is down 70%. So I don't think I mean, listen, are people coming from El Salvador? Sure. But I don't think Bukele is giving them money and giving them luggage and telling them, be on your way to America. I think what Bukele has been doing in El Salvador has been one of the greatest accomplishments of the 21st, if not 21st and 20th century, as far as cleaning up a country and jailing criminals and having a whole social reform in a country, turning it to the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. So I think that jab at Trump, I think what Bukele turned into is what Trump could have been. And Trump took that personally. He has a gigantic ego, but he took that personally and he made a jab at Bukele for no other reason. If anything, he should have praised Bukele and said, "This is something that the United States and my administration would love to mirror, would love to recreate here in the United States." But he didn't do that. And when he said that, I turned the speech off. I was like, I'm not watching this anymore. And I was watching I was watching the RNC all from Nick's stream. And when the speakers were speaking, Nick was pretty quiet, so I didn't really get to hear after Trump's speech what he was, what Nick was saying. But I'm sure that he may have said something about the Bukele jab. I know, not Paul Woods, but Keith Woods posted on X. He was like, "What was going on here? Was that jab intentional? Did he mean to say El Salvador? Did he mean to take a jab at Bukele?" Because he even said in the speech, Trump said in the speech, maybe we'll have the next rally in Venezuela since it's so safe. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe he did mess up the countries because I haven't heard any news about Venezuela becoming more safe, especially not in the way that El Salvador has been progressing. So that's it. And I talked to my mother this morning. My mother is, yeah. Nick seemed, Scotty Hook. Yeah, Nick definitely seemed checked out. I think that he was emotionally and physically drained at this point. He just seemed like he was. I mean, not that we didn't think that he was going to turn into like an RNC stooge or anything like that. I think he went into it with low expectations, and unfortunately, those expectations were met. And then me and my wife are sitting there, and they're bringing out Kid Rock to perform American Badass or whatever that song was. No band behind him. There was a band that was playing somewhere off like stage left or whatever. But he was lip syncing through the whole thing. It was weird and it was cringe. What kind of and then Lee Greenwood came out and sang, proud to be an American. That dude's, 1 foot in the grave. And I'm just saying to myself, who was this meant for? I think Candace Owens had mentioned during the Indian Ladies Prayer, did they get together and discuss who was this actually meant for? It wasn't meant for me. It wasn't meant for people like Nick. It wasn't meant for like people like Candace. I don't like I was saying before, I think the demographic was for 50 to 70-year-old boomer women. And if that's the audience that they went for, then they got it. But it was rough. It was rough. And I spoke to my mother this morning and I said, "Did you see what Trump said about Bukele?" And she said, "What?" My mother's from El Salvador. And she said, "No, I didn't see it." I said, "Well, don't look it up. I don't want to show you." And then 5 minutes later, I sent it to her, and she said, "No." She said, "No, I'm not voting for Trump anymore. No, no, no. The dude has to make everything about himself." And I agreed with her. And this is the same woman. My mother was the same woman who I said on Saturday, I said, "Hey, did you see what happened to Trump at the rally?" And she said, "I can't watch the news because they took out my poor Trump, or they tried to, and I saw him with the blood, and I got really teary-eyed, and I was like, oh, he'll be okay." And then the same woman later is like, "No, F this guy. I don't care." And people know me who follow Instagram. They know me that I was abstaining from voting this year just because they no candidate has met my approval for policy positions, so I'm not going to vote. And I made some memes talking about how bad the RNC was, and when the lady started doing her da 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 da, you are the one true God prayer, I made a meme and I made a reel, and I was like, yeah, I'm voting for Biden at this point, which is all hyperbole. I'm not voting for Biden. Hey, Jason, just got here. Very, very happy for you. We're talking about how bad the RNC speeches were and how I'm not voting for Trump. Hulk Hogan did a lot of the hype work for nothing. Yeah, if this was, the 1988 convention and Hulk did something like that, awesome. That'd be great. But maybe it was made for the Gen Xers, because young people, they see Hulk Hogan and they're like, I mean, you have people like maybe like a John Doyle or something who gets excited about that. And like, yeah, America, Hulk Hogan, we're so back, baby. I'm proud to be a conservative. It's just so corny. You know what I mean? But all they could have, for me, if they wanted my vote, they could have had Nick come up on there and talk to Gen Z and says, "Listen, we need to do something about the Zionist takeover in American politics. We also need to close the border to everybody, and we need to make abortion illegal throughout the land, and Christ is King." I think that would have I mean, that would have been insane. I mean, I'm thinking about how the crowd at the RNC would react to that. Probably crazy. Charlie Kirk would shit a literal brick. Um, but yeah, I thought it was boring, man. I thought it was boring. It's so dumb. Trump just seemed annoyed that bad people were self-deporting out of El Salvador into America. Yeah, that's funny. I'm not sure voting matters anymore. No, I don't know. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's weird. It doesn't. I'm going through a point in my life again where if you guys follow the show, I've been going from, just not necessarily switching careers, but going from job to job. And I've been interviewing with a company that if I do get in, if I am offered a position, I would be moving back to the Northeast and getting out of the South. And, the salary is insane. It would be 3 times what I'm making now. So, I'm hoping to get it. I've done 2 interviews for it. Um, and I do have a friend that works for the company who recommended me for the job, so I got that going for me. But I'm thinking, were times better during Trump? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think the person who's in the Oval Office really, really, really makes that much of a difference upon my personal life. If you're a soldier, obviously, if you're part of the military, obviously, you would rather not have a war hawk in office. If you work in the financial sector, and I know that there's uh, trickle down through different sectors like that, but I know that if probably you're in the economic sector, you don't necessarily want to have anyone on the left in the Oval Office. But I don't know. I don't know if voting really matters anymore. Yes, Jesus is instrumental. Absolutely. And yeah, I do agree that the rate of inflation under Biden has been ridiculous. But I'm sure, I'm sure if Trump had won the second term, we might have had good gas prices and all that stuff, but the turmoil within the American system between its own citizenry would have gotten worse. So who knows? Who knows? But that I mean, that's again, it all comes down to people. It all comes down to what's in their hearts. So, like David Wynn just said, Jesus is instrumental. So I think more people need to come to Christ. Obviously, um, will the decline be more comfortable or faster? Vote now. Yeah. Did anyone just lose audio? Did anybody just lose audio and visual? Can I get let's get a W in the chat if you guys can still hear and see me. We'd like that. W in the chat if you guys can still see me. Thank you all 21 of you for being here. That's great. I'm going to do a Twitter space with Bryson Gray on Monday. We're going to talk about reasons uh, why we're not voting for Trump. I believe Bryson is kind of off the MAGA train, which, if anything, catapulted him into the sort of fame and recognition that he has now. Everybody knows that he was a big MAGA guy, but like I said, and what he has said, that if you're not lining up on policy, especially when it comes down to faith, then I can't get with you. I can't do it. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah. And yeah, anyway, so that's what's been going on. I wonder what it would be like to move back to the Northeast. That would be great because I get to be closer to my family and the kids will be able to have time with their grandparents and cousins and things like that. And making more money is certainly a lot better. But I get a little anxious about leaving the South because the South is it feels more like home, but at the same time, I don't feel home. My wife and I, we both grew up with our families so close in distance to each other, and we were very close to our families. And now that we're geographically further away, that sense of home really doesn't hit as much as we thought it would. But we're tight knit, little family of 4 here, and my parents are coming in next week, which is going to be nice. So I don't know. I don't know. I gotta talk to my dad about how he feels about Trump. My dad is kind of more on the boomer side and is a Trump fan, and I don't know if he liked the JD Vance pick. I know a lot of the former Fox News type of viewer like JD Vance. That guy is so impersonable. He has the personality of a couch. I don't know what that pick was all about, and I don't even know who I was expecting him to pick. Obviously, he wasn't gonna pick Tucker, he wasn't gonna pick Vivek. The dude Vivek had said numerous amount of times that he doesn't want, the B position, he wants to be the president. He was never gonna pick RFK, even though I think that would have been a disastrous ticket on moral grounds. But I mean, two birds of a feather flock together. They both are supporters of abortion. So I don't know who could have been a good pick. Maybe any of like the base senators or congressmen like Jim Jordan or Thomas Massey or Candace. He could have picked Candace as a running mate. Um, MK Ultra. Yes. Yes. Yes, this is true. This is another thing. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Joe Biden. I don't care if it's JD Vance. JD Vance, you cannot consider yourself, let alone Catholic. I don't even think you consider yourself a Christian if you in any way support abortion in any way for any reason. I don't think you can call yourself a Christian. And if you do, you better stop. I talk about this all the time. I had a comment go viral on Instagram. I think it was a Colbert Late Show where he was talking to Bill Maher about abortion. He was just talking to Bill Maher about Catholicism in general. I'm like, Stephen Colbert supports abortion. He cannot call himself a Catholic. There's one based bishop or priest in Ireland who publicly denied communion to an Irish politician because of that politician's stand on abortion. When is that going to come here? When are priests in America going to take a stand and knowingly deny the sacraments to people who support abortion? When is it going to happen? I kind of wish Biden would stay in office long enough so that a priest can do that. I don't even think the guy goes to church anyway. And like I'm saying, you cannot judge anybody's hearts. You judge actions. But if the action is in support of the killing of a defenseless human person, then you can kind of understand that person's heart. And that person cannot call himself a Christian because he knows what Jesus feels about hurting children. And it'd be better if you were at the bottom of the sea. Would it not? I still don't like this. Oh, hearing the Catholic Jewish girl brag about her husband was just weird. I didn't see that one. I know that. Oh, here's another thing that I kind of can't stand. And I know I spoke to E. Michael Jones about this in one of the last episodes that you guys can go back and check this out. But someone said in response to Keith Wood's tweet about, hey, what's going on here about Trump talking about Bukele like this? Someone responded with, well, Bukele married a Jew. Trump's kids are all Jews. And I'm saying to myself, Bukele's wife is Catholic. Like, I'm pretty sure I know Bukele's mother is Catholic. His father was I think Palestinian Christian, then converted to Islam and was the imam in El Salvador up until his death in 2015. But Bukele was not Islamic. He was not a Muslim. Bukele was and is Christian, and if anything, I think Catholic because of his mom and his wife. And Bukele's wife says that she has Jewish roots because her father was a Sephardic Jew. But again, when I spoke to E. Michael Jones, it comes from the mother. Okay? If the mother is not Jewish, one cannot be called Jewish, right? I don't even believe that converting to Judaism makes one a Jew because the Jews don't see it as that. The Jews see it in the blood. If you're not born to two Jewish parents, I don't think they even consider you Jewish. I don't think they really take in converts. Maybe on paper, but no, it's just this weird cope. And I guess some other groypers were like, you're Jewish because if your dad is Jewish, you're denying your own ethnicity and your own genetics. And I'm saying, well, I mean, listen, E. Michael Jones did say that in America he thinks Jews can be an ethnicity, but I'm still not about that. I guess when I talk about Judaism and someone being Jewish, I guess in the context of me talking about it, I talk more about it religiously because it doesn't matter. Like, to call somebody ethnically Jewish doesn't make sense if you're trying to find out about that person. Oh, what's your what's your ethnicity? I'm Jewish. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything about you. It doesn't tell me where you come from or where your family comes from. That's why I think it's easier to say, what's your ethnicity? Oh, I'm Eastern European. I'm Western European. I'm Latin American. I'm Spanish. That means ethnicity. But when you say, if someone tells me, oh, I'm Jewish, okay, you are a practitioner of the Talmud and you are my enemy. for the most part. Um, Yeah, see, here's the thing. A lot of Jewish people are atheists, but still consider themselves ethnically Jewish, and that's the part that I push back on because ethnically Jewish, Judaism is a religion. Tribes of Israel, maybe I guess, are ethnicity. So I would say, well, if we're descendants from this tribe of Israel, then that makes more sense than saying, well, I'm ethnically Jewish. Well, what does that mean? You can be Jewish from anywhere. You got to be specific. Um, Trump's appointments reverse Roe v. Wade. Isn't this a step forward? If it's the step forward where nearly 10 years later you still have the guy who supports the abortion pill, then no, it's not a step forward. It's a stagnation. So, yeah, I mean, I think there are only a handful of states that have outlawed abortion totally in the U.S. Tennessee is one of them, but if there's not an outright criminal crackdown on abortion, then it doesn't matter. I want to see people going to jail for getting abortions. I want to see people going to jail for performing abortions. I want to see people going to jail for encouraging abortions. So no, we are not at a step forward. We're in the same place where we were. And just to point out, though, those Supreme Court appointees, and including people like Clarence Thomas, they're all Catholic who pushed it through. So the step forward would be to put more Catholics, real Catholics, actual Catholics, not devout, but actual Catholics into positions of power in this country to help move the ball forward. Because I think you have an evangelical cult for Trump, and as long as it's Trump, they're going to support him no matter what. Yeah, my last name is Ashkenazi Jewish, and I'm not Jewish. There you go. There you go. Dems do not hide the fact that they hate children. It tells you incredibly soon, just like you dig into ethnicities, you'll find don't a lot of them use the label to deny being white. Yeah, maybe the left wing ones will say, "Oh, I'm not white, I'm Jewish," but that's like, no, you're white. I don't know. That doesn't. I agree, it's bizarre because it's essentially religion. It is. It is. It's like if someone, what's your ethnicity? I'm Catholic. Would you know sort of any part of my background other than my faith? No. You just be like, okay, this guy's a Catholic. I know what he believes. I'm ethnically Catholic. What does that mean? I'm ethnically Catholic. The Catholic Church was founded in the Middle East. So if I were to say I'm ethnically Catholic, you trace all the roots back to the Middle East in 33 AD. I don't know. Megadeth told us, I haven't seen you in quite a while. You were kicked from my feed. It's good to see you. And I'm glad you're finding continued success, my good man. Well, thank you, Megadeth till death. I really do appreciate that. I'm sad. You should follow on Instagram. I hope you're following on Instagram because we're doing a good job there. We've had a lot of reels go quite viral. A lot of reels go viral. So it's been going good there. Jewish people aren't really that interested in things regarding the afterlife. So even religious Jews are kind of atheistic. If you pay attention, it's all about this life. That makes sense. They don't believe in, well, they don't believe in hell. Don't they believe in heaven, though? They believe in heaven, I'm pretty sure. Like when Morgan Freeman was asked about Black History Month, the interviewer was asked back if he wanted a White History Month, and he said he was right. I remember that. He says, I remember the guy. Do you think America is racist? And then Morgan Freeman goes, today? The way Morgan Freeman says today, I don't want a Black History Month. Why relegate my history to only 1 month? Morgan Freeman says. He says Black history is American history. How would you like White History Month? And he goes, no, I'm Jewish. And he goes, okay. Would you like a Jewish History Month? And then who was it? Was it Mike Wallace or I can't remember? And he said, no, I wouldn't want that. Eastern European Jews are whiter than I am, and I'm white. I'm ethnically a sarcastic jerk. Hold on, I gotta see what my kid's doing out here. Hold on. Hey, what's going on here? What's going on? Hey, Ro, I hear you in there, and you're making a lot of noise. Look at these houses that your mom built. Look at that. Fantastic. You're gonna stop yelling. You want to stop yelling, or do you want to play? Let's find a good way to play. Okay, because we're gonna have to interfere. Okay. Okay. No more yelling. Lukey wants to play with you. Sorry about that. That's what having kids. You have to go there and you have to put out fires. Oh, that Rolex wall clock right there. Yeah, that Rolex, that right there. Funny thing is, I'm pointing to the other wall, but because it's a camera, right there. Yeah, it's not a real Rolex wall clock. There are real Rolex wall clocks out there that Rolex will send to ADs and jewelry stores as promotional items that I bought from China. I bought it from China. So thank you though. Thank you for thinking that it's neat. Um, yeah, nothing else. I'm trying to think. We're still arguing with Protestants online just a bit. Other than that, everything has been kind of fun. It's kind of weird. I have a friend of mine, and I've talked about him on the feed before. The Film Pope, who I think he was doing an AMA, and I think the Film Pope, he has massive amount of followers on Instagram, and he said he was doing an AMA, and he answered a question about Islam, and he said, "I don't know how you do this. I'm getting hundreds of DMs, people yelling at me," and as someone who does his best to answer every single comment that comes in, I just say it's part of the territory. I think it's a badge of honor when you have a lot of people mad at you. I'm still talking to people who think that the Virgin Mary gave birth to other children daily. Daily, I am dealing with this. And it's funny because I say, you have no biblical evidence that Mary bore other children. They pipe back, oh, so you're affirming sola scriptura. No, I'm doing the opposite of that. I'm saying the Bible never mentions that Mary physically bore other children. You're saying, even though it doesn't mention that Mary ever bore other children physically, you still believe, you still believe that she did. That's very odd. Why would you do that? So I'm not affirming sola scriptura. If what I'm doing is affirming that just because something is or isn't in the Bible, that's not even the mindset. I'm saying that because it's not in the Bible means that I probably shouldn't believe it. So I'm not affirming sola scriptura, if that makes any sense, because I don't think that the Bible is the sole authority, right? Because and what I said even further was that if the witnesses to the life of Christ, the gospel writers, if they wrote in because they saw it, they saw a pregnant Mary at any point after Christ's birth and during Christ's life, and if they wrote about it, and if they all agreed to it, you would have to believe it, right? But the fact that didn't happen, yet people will still say Mary bore other children. So they're not even really adhering to sola scriptura, if that's the case, because the Bible doesn't make any mention of it. So the people claiming sola scriptura aren't even sola scriptura. It's very odd. That's I've never asked anybody that. They'll use verses from Mark and talk about, isn't this the son of the carpenter whose brothers are so and so, so and so, so and so, and whose sisters are so and so, so and so? There's like two different Marys that the Bible talks about who have sons named James and Jude and or Judas or whoever, and they say the wife of Clopas, or it's the wife to Clopas. They say it's another Mary. But yet, I've never asked a Protestant pastor or theologian this. Does the Bible at any point or the gospel at any point mention Mary being pregnant after Christ's birth? Right? No, it doesn't. So how do you know that she bore other children? If she bore, if wouldn't you think they'd throw that little tidbit in, and then upon the 10th year of their journey back to Israel, Mary being pregnant again gave birth to another son who they named James. It never happens. It never happens. So you don't think Jews are an ethnic group? It's just a religion. Yes. I think Eastern Europeans can be Jews, just as Eastern Europeans can be Catholics. I know people disagree with this. I don't see it as an ethnicity. Hey, hey. Okay, well let's go out of here. Let's go out of here for a second, bud. Okay, I'll be out there in a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna lock my door. I'll be out there in a little bit. Okay. Oh yeah. I have an off day. I have an off day from work. That's why I'm here on a Friday. Jesus' siblings are mentioned in the Gospels, or at least one of them. They are not. They are not his siblings. They are not his blood brothers. James is not Christ's blood brother. What a lot of people think, and the theories are, since Joseph was so old, I even think that's wrong, that Joseph was supposed to be some old dude. But Joseph may have been married before and was a widower and had children from his previous marriage, that when he was married to Mary, Jesus would have had like a step brother or half brother. There's no evidence to prove that Jesus had any blood brothers, and there's further evidence that at the cross, there were none of his blood relatives other than Mary were at the cross. So it's kind of weird for a guy who has these blood brothers that none of them are at the cross. Yes. So, um, oh yeah, it's very contentious. It's a very contentious issue because the perpetual virginity of Mary in the Catholic Church is dogma. Yes. So they say that a lot of people bring up this argument too. Is like, so you're saying that Mary and Joseph did not have a godly relationship because the Jews, for Jews, it is incumbent on them to produce children and to have children. And I'm saying, well, do you think that Joseph denied God's command to be with Mary as her shepherd, as her protector? Because Mary needed someone to do that. I don't think that Joseph's role was to have other children besides Christ with Mary. And we all know that Joseph didn't conceive Christ. Christ was conceived by the Holy Spirit through Mary. And someone also told me something interesting when I was talking to my priest who I had on the show, Father Matthew. Well, he's not really my priest, but he's a friend of mine who's a priest, and he said something that was really interesting. He said that they said that there's verbiage saying that the pains, the birthing pains of Mary, um, were minimized when Christ was born into the world, but Mary received those pains later at Calvary, at the foot of the cross. So her birthing pains were put to the side during Christ's entrance into the world, but then later she experienced those pains when Christ birthed the church at Calvary. And I thought that was really, really interesting what my friend said, Father Matthew. And Father Matthew is based, actually, I'll tell you the story. I was at work, and in the early afternoon, I was getting these calls from a Long Island number. And I was saying, "Who is this?" I'll call back when I get off of work. I get home, and I get another phone call. I see the same number, and then I get a text message, and it says, "Hey, Mike, it's Matt, Father Matthew. Just want to see how you and the family were doing. Love talking to you. Let me know if you have time." So after I put my daughter to sleep, I called him, and I said, "Hey, Father Matt, what's going on?" And he said, "I got it." The first thing he says is, "I got to tell you, I love what you're doing on Instagram." I started laughing because I said, "Oh no, I'm not nice on Instagram. I'm kind of mean, but I have a Catholic priest who finds it hilarious and he thinks I'm doing a good job." So we talked theologically. We talked about a bunch of different things that we talked about. Was it true that Muslims worship the same God as we Christians do? We talked about this Mary bearing other children, which he flat out obviously denied. He says no. The perpetual virginity of Mary is upheld through the church, and there's no evidence for or otherwise. And then I talked to him about, should I go as hard as I do on Instagram? And he says they think if it starts to bother you emotionally and spiritually, then you have to confront that. But other than that, no, I like what you're doing. I like the way that you're evangelizing. I think we need different kinds of evangelization in the church. You have priests, you have nuns, and then you have lay people and theologians and other types of personalities, and you have people like me who kind of hit you over the head with it and may be a little overzealous about it. Um, and I think you need all sorts. And if I could bring people to the faith via what I do and still speak truth, then I think that's of value. Because if I was going around spouting lies, it'd be very different. Then I think what I would be doing is wrong. But all I do is repeat the church's position on certain things, and I make kind of good memes sometimes. Yes. Okay. What is going on when it comes to salvation? Jason English, when it comes to these salvations, does it really matter? Well, I mean, if you're alluding to the fact that Catholics believe that Mary is somehow involved in our salvation, I think no, because Catholics don't believe that our salvation comes via Mary. At the same time, I think that we should honor God's commandments in honoring our mothers and fathers, and we honor the mother of God and the mother of Christ. I think that's very important. And I think that a lot of people come to Christ through Mary, just as Christ came into the world through Mary. Um, so I think that matters, yeah. And I think that history matters, and I think that truth matters. So I think if people are going to distort history and try to tell us that Mary bore other children when she's always Mary is doesn't matter if it's by low church Protestants, high church Protestants, even Muslims. When they refer to Mary, they refer to her as the Virgin Mary. If she wasn't the Virgin Mary and she bore other children, she would just be called Mary. But she's known throughout the world as the Virgin Mary, the Virgin of Guadalupe. So I think truth matters, and I think being deceptive is not good on the part of a lot of Protestants and on the part of a lot of evangelicals and non-denominational people and groups. I think that they should repent for bearing false witness upon their neighbors, saying that we think certain things that aren't true or say certain things that aren't true. But no, ultimately, Mary isn't the source of our salvation, and the source of our salvation is via God's grace. I don't understand why we prods and cats are at each other's throats over trivial nonsense. Well, Jason, again, it's truth versus lies. And if you heard someone telling a lie, you would confront that person, wouldn't you? You would say, "You're lying. You're leading people in the wrong direction through your lies. And also, you're confusing people." And the last thing you want to do is make someone doubt his own faith. So when it comes to the bickering, one side is telling the truth and the other side is lying. Yes. History shows that small disagreements lead to massive ones. I do agree. And the disagreements, even, through the Reformation, Mary and her perpetual virginity really wasn't the issue. The issue was Martin Luther's own scrupulosity and I guess, the selling of indulgences, which was correctly. It was, as far as history goes and time goes, the selling of indulgences was very, very quickly corrected. Um, so I don't know. That's still a weird cope. The whole Catholics pay for salvation kind of thing. It's like, if that's very Reddit tier. That's like Reddit tier Protestantism. Oh, well, you guys still pay for your salvation. It's like, okay, cool, nice fedora. I like the neck beard. Very good for you. Next, um, Christ is God in flesh. Case closed. Of course, she was a virgin. I've never. Jason, do you believe that Mary gave birth to other children and that Jesus had blood brothers? No clue who Mike is, so not concerned. Well, you're here, so you seem. I don't know if you are concerned or seem concerned. Oh, Cameron. Hey, Cameron. Protestants are the definition of cafeteria Christians. They pick and choose what they want to be a part of their faith based on personal emotions. True. Very true. Very, very true. Let me see here. What else can we talk about? I'm not gonna stay on for too long because I think my daughter is that's one of the reasons I like, my family cannot be home when I'm doing a live stream because my daughter will end up ruining it. I just said that it wasn't I just said that it's not relevant to our salvation, but I can still ask questions, can't I? I'm telling you that a very, very large number of people in the world think that Mary gave birth to other children. And you're telling me that she was always a virgin. So these things matter, right? They're important. It's church dogma, right? It's church dogma. So either you believe church dogma or you don't. And if you don't, what makes you, not you, Jason, but what makes you so sure about that? How are you what makes someone who disagrees with church dogma so sure and so certain that that he or she is right? What makes them more knowledgeable than any of the church fathers? Because the church fathers, they wrote about this. They wrote about the perpetual virginity of Mary. They wrote about the sacraments. They knew the apostles. So, before converting to the church, my Lutheran pastor said that Catholics see the Pope as God on earth. No, that's probably just jealousy. That's probably maybe something, maybe his congregation wasn't as big as the closest local Catholic parish and he was just mad. So they usually talk a lot of shit about Catholics. But no, Catholics do not see the Pope as God. That's a ridiculous thing to say. That's almost insulting to Catholics. We view him as a representative of God, but in the same way we would view a priest as a representative from God. I went to confession on Tuesday and I thought about that recently because I struggled. I struggled with the idea of going to confession for that particular sin. And they say it's like a trick of the devil that you start to question the worthiness of you going to confession to confess a sin. If you start rationalizing it, then that's the trick of the devil is you start rationalizing your sin. I did this because I was depressed, or I did this because it's not really that much of a big deal. So that when you go to confession, the priest is in persona Christi, right? He's the representative of Christ on earth. So that's what makes confession so valuable, right? You're not just confessing to a friend. I mean, and listen, you can confess to God in, dire circumstances if you can't get yourself to a priest, obviously. Um, but you are voicing that out loud to a person appointed by God and approved by God who can forgive your sins on earth. So I think that's very important. Um, yeah, Ked's dead. Yeah, Catholics do not see the Pope as God. That's very weird. I wonder if he always knew he was lying. 100% knew he was lying. There would be no way that in seminary they would teach him that popes see themselves or the 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 Catholic Church sees the Pope as God. There'd be no way any self-respecting seminarian would ever teach that. I haven't been around in a while. Probably old news, but what happened to you and Gina's podcast? It ended. Yeah, sad. It ended. I wish we were still doing it, but we're not, and probably better, right? I mean, who knows where it'd be right now if we were still doing it. Um, I do know I had fun doing it, and I've been texting Gina every now and then. We've been talking mostly about Nick Fuentes, which is nice, but she had another baby, and we had another baby here, so maybe it was just time for things to end, and even if they did end a little bit contentiously, I think we're fine now. And if we saw each other in person, we'd give each other a big hug and we'd say, "How you doing?" And we'd wish each other well. That's it. Oh, Jay, I know you're not trying to offend. I know people when they're asking questions, they're asking questions. Um, you hated it. Mike hated the RNC. Yeah, I guess hate is better than apathy. Yes, I can hate a thing. I don't hate people. I hated the RNC. I disliked the people who were there for the most part because I didn't hear. I'll tell this again. They were lax on abortion. They were lax on abortion. They were lax on immigration. They were lax on the Zionist influence within politics, and they were what was the fourth thing? I really don't care about like economics or anything like that. So it was probably those three major issues. I think it's good Gina focuses on being a mom instead of an e-girl. Yes, I'd have to agree with that. Good on her. Good on her. I had the idea that I wanted to start a podcast with my wife, but I kind of like, she should just be a mom. The only time that we'd really be able to have to do that is when the kids are asleep, and one of them is only asleep for about an hour at most anyway. So it would just be a rush. And yes, I don't want to e-girl my wife. Great example of a woman, indeed. There it is again. There it is. The whirling log, as you see. So that's it. What do we call it today? I think I'm about to have hamburgers, and it's Friday night movie night here in the Lerner household. So we're going to watch Where the Wild Things Are, the Spike Jones Where the Wild Things Are, folks. We're going to do that. So I have a request. Ooh, okay. This is a personal go. Yeah, I think that's it. How are they soft on immigration? Trump said day one he's deporting all the illegals. All of them. Illegal, legal, no immigration. That's tough on immigration for me, is zero immigration. I don't care. Trump is talking about, remember when Trump was talking to, it wasn't Tucker, I don't remember who it was, but he was like, we should be stamping green cards. Frankly, we stamp green cards. People who've been born here, quite frankly, for a while, stamp the green card to their jacket and give them citizenship right away. No, 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 no. All of it. Someone, my buddy texted me saying, "Can you please infiltrate the Vatican and dogmatize women dogmatize women being banned from all social activity aside from talking to their husbands? I'm talking driving, social media, everything. They must be stopped." I hope he's not talking. Are you? I'd be like, "Are you at the Eucharistic Congress?" That was something that I would rather live stream than the RNC is Eucharistic Congress going right now in Indianapolis. I don't know if it ended or if it's still going, but I'd like to go to that sometime in the future. I don't know. Um, movie recommendations, big time. We like movies here in this family. If God really did save Trump, wouldn't that prove God isn't all good or all powerful? Why did he ignore the father protecting his family? Bad thing happens, no God. It's with these people. God said himself, greater love hath no man than this, to give up his life for his friends. And in the context of that, friend, stranger, fellow man, family. God did not cause that bullet to be fired, right? God didn't cause that. God gives us free will. What we do either brings us to God or separates us from him. So it wasn't God's fault that Corey, the firefighter, comparator, or however you say his last name, it wasn't that he saved Trump and that action of saving Trump killed Corey. No. There are consequences and results from the things that we do, both positive and negative, based on that free will that God gives us. And what better way to show your faith and your love of God than to give up your life for that of your children or your wife or your friends? That man is going to quick line it through purgatory and end up in heaven. And it's one of those things. It's one of the things that the wives of the martyrs of were they Syrian? Were they Palestinian? The martyrs who were killed by ISIS. They were beheaded. The wives. There's one wife in particular who said something. She says, "We are Christians. We should all be destined for martyrdom. People are telling me, why am I sad that my husband was martyred?" She said, "I'm not sad. To have been married to a martyr, to be the wife of a martyr, is one of the most high distinctions I can have from God himself. We should all be willing to die for what we believe. And, if I'm Corey's family, I'm devastated by what happened, but deep down in me, I am so thrilled that he gets to be with God. I think I just to even think about it gives me chills. You know what I mean? I'm ever put into this position where if I have to get in between someone who has chosen to live his life separately from God and who is an agent of evil, and if I can put myself between that person and my family, 10 out of 10, I'm not going to blame God for it. I'm going to thank God for it. I wish I can go out a martyr. I hope to one day. Base White Boy. I like Base White Boy. Hey, Mike, just wanted to say, what up, big fella? Hope you and the family are well. We are well, Base White Boy. I hope you and the Pit Vipers are doing well. I hope your family is well. Did you hear about the censored TV drama? No, the merger with Compound is going less than swimmingly. Well, couldn't have predicted that. God only wills good things. He may permit bad things only if it works towards the good. I've always thought about like it'd be kind of a bummer if God was just this puppet master, right? Who forced us to love him, forced us to do his will, and that's not what happens. Theology checks out. I don't know, Denny. Oh, by the way, Denny, I did sell the plate carrier and the plates, which are right over there on the couch. I sold them to a lovely man in Wyoming, Jason English. His Syrian wife is a certified badass. She is. I honestly, I try to. I need to make that video into a post. I don't think I made that video into a post. I need to make that video into a post, and she needs to be made a saint. I think that wife should be made a saint. I want to advocate and lobby for her sainthood. Okay, so God gave humans free will. How do you explain hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, stuff that isn't because of humans? Well, what do you want me to explain? You want me to explain natural occurring events? God created the natural world, right? So, are you equating a gunman walking into a bank and killing people as the same as a hurricane going through Miami or tornado rolling through Oklahoma and hurting people or killing people? Are you equating the two or you're not equating the two? So because God created the world and the natural forces within that world can be destructive, that automatically means that God is destroying people? I don't think so. Oh, thank you. They did choose to live there. You're right. Yes, you live in Nebraska, Oklahoma, or Kansas, even here in Tennessee. You do put yourself at risk of adverse climate or weather events. Um, AKA his children. Let me go back. How do I explain hurricanes, earthquakes, and tornadoes? How explain what? Like that's what I don't like. This is a kind of like Reddit tier atheism, right? Like you have to find something in order to point to God bad, right? You're like you're painting this image of God as this kind of like father figure in a way, which I guess he is. But at the same time, God isn't a being. He's outside of time. He's outside of space. He's outside of every dimension humanly and and humanly capable of thinking of, right? He's so outside of that. And I think that something as powerful as that, who created everything we see around us, and then to say he created you as well, and then still saying hurricane kill people, hurricane bad, God make hurricane, God bad, is such you really, really, really have to sit down and think about this. You have to open your mind to this. Right now, your mind is closed because bad thing happened, no God. That's a very closed-minded way of thinking about things because you're viewing it in the lens of a human person who is within space and time and in this dimension and in this reality. Because you can't put yourself in this sort of God mind outside of space and time. It's very, very hard to do that and think like that. So it's a very simple, rudimentary, one-dimensional way of thinking. God make thing, thing is bad, thing hurt people, God bad. No, no. I think, and I think we should probably end there. 5:18. We're going to watch Where the Wild Things Are. Thank you guys for joining the stream. I really do appreciate it. God bless you and have a great weekend.